Chrono-Dissolve by Griffus. Andrew's eyes crunched under a blinding light that was shining from a single bulb above his head. It illuminated the white room in an incandescent static glow. He held up his hand to block out the glare as it passed through his bifocals. He looked down and noticed two other people on the white glossy floor, motionless. They were dressed in white, as he was, and appeared to be unconscious. "Hey," he gasped through his dry throat. "Can you hear me? Is anyone hurt?" As he was asking, he checked himself for any signs of trauma. His head throbbed. It felt as though his entire skull had been crushed and then reassembled with superglue. His eyes shot toward a movement, a slight shift of a long dark leg that led up to a white skirt. He jumped up and slid over to her. He grabbed her behind the head and held it up. "Oh, what happened?" Her voice was faint and quiet. "I'm not sure. I think we've been kidnapped. Are you okay? How did you get here? What's your name?" Andrew pushed his questions forward as quickly as they came to mind. "I'm not sure. I don't... Jane? June? Jessica? Yes, Jessica." Andrew searched his own databank to see if he could come up with his own name. All he had was Andrew. Then he turned toward Jessica again. "Do you remember your last name?" His eyes shifted back and forth, as if to search an invisible list of possibilities. "No." Fear welled up in her eyes. "No, I don't." Andrew looked around the room and noticed a man waking up. "Do any of you remember your names? Even better, do you remember your last names?" Andrew asked. They both paused and looked off in recollection. "Stephen," the tall man finally blurted out in a deep southern accent. "But for the life of me, I can't remember my last name." "Do you remember how you got here?" Andrew asked. They shook their heads and looked at each other. Andrew started to pace the reflective surface of the room. He tried to remember the last thing he was doing. If he could only remember how they got in here, maybe they could get back out again. He walked over to one of the corners and meticulously scanned the wall from one corner to the next. His hands palmed the matte surface, hoping to find some sort of imperfection. There was nothing. It was unnaturally smooth. He stood back and looked up at the white wall. It stretched at least 3 feet above his head. Then he put his hand on his hip. He felt a pocket. Inside was a small folded piece of paper. He opened it and read it to himself a couple of times over, just to make sure he knew what it meant. "What is it?" Jessica asked. "It's a note. Well, more like a contract. Check your pockets, you might have one too," Andrew replied. They followed his instructions and were stunned by what they read. A contract that would change their lives forever. A contract that neither one of them remembered signing. "What on earth is this?" Stephen asked. "Is this some kind of joke?" His rage started to ignite. "You can't keep us in here!" He threw his fists against the walls. "You can't do this to us!" They waited for a response, but there wasn't one. Stephen tried again. He was now engulfed with anger. "You better let us out of here now! You have no idea who you have locked in here." Silence. "Wait, maybe there isn't anyone out there. Maybe they are just holding us here. This is just a room. There must be something outside. We could be anywhere." Jessica's voice struck them with a hard blow of logic. "But why would they kidnap us?" Andrew asked. "Well, I don't know about you, but I have a few people who would kidnap me," Stephen replied. "Why's that?" Jessica asked and looked up at the tall man. "Well, let's just say I've upset a few folks in my day. That's what you get when you spend your life as a soldier. I wonder why it hasn't happened yet. If it wasn't for the vodka, I wouldn't be able to make it." Stephen cracked a smile. "What about you? Don't you have any enemies?" "I can't think of any. I'm a fairly nice person. I don't think I've ever had any issues with anyone. I have a lot of regrets, but that's what happens when you're a doctor," Jessica replied. "What about you? What's your name? What do you do?" Andrew let go of each answer in the order they were given. "My name is Andrew. I've been retired for a decade or so. I can't imagine why anyone would kidnap me." "Did you have a job before you retired?" Jessica asked. "I was a teacher. I'm a writer now," Andrew said. I don't think I have any regrets other than the simple regrets of procrastination. Are you married or have any kids? Jessica continued. I'm married, but I can't remember having any children. I think I might have had kids, but it's a blur, like a dream or a thin memory. Andrew looked away from the group. He became tense with the idea of losing a memory like that. He tried to envision a child in his life. I remember a girl, a small girl, but after the age of 7, it's like the memories fade. I remember her first steps, but I don't remember her first day of school. It feels like I should, though. I don't even remember her name. Maybe this note will help. Stephen pulled out his contract. I, Stephen, of sound body and mind, have agreed to the temporal displacement Chrono-Dissolve procedure. I will, without reservation, prevent Brenda Anderson from boarding the 747 jetliner scheduled to depart at 8:15 a.m. from JFK Airport. Well, that seems simple enough, Jessica replied. All mine says is that I have to arrive at the Luxury Inn Hotel at exactly 10:45 p.m. and walk into room 306. What is this all about? Some sort of scavenger hunt? Stephen chuckled. Andrew looked over his contract again. Then he looked up toward the rest of them. Well, what does yours say? Jessica pressed. Beads of sweat began to develop around the back of Andrew's neck. It says that I have to kill Marcus Peters? What? You can't. That's murder, Jessica blurted. Do you know the man? Stephen asked. No, I've never heard the name in my life. Do either of you know him? Andrew asked. They both shook their heads. It was just a name to them. It's still murder, Jessica shouted. I won't have any part of it. There's something more here, Andrew said as he read the small print at the bottom of the page. It says that if the contracts are not upheld, the Chrono-Dissolve parent company will not be held responsible for pain and anguish, and all funds collected will be non-refundable. It doesn't make any sense. Who would pay to be... Before Jessica could finish her thoughts, the walls began to flicker. Hello, all. A large video of a man in a suit appeared on each wall. You have now begun your Chrono-Dissolve procedure. Soon you will need to worry not about your current grief. Our patented and safe procedure will ensure your complete satisfaction. As a precautionary measure, we would like you to please take another dose of your memory dull pill. A rectangular panel opened on each wall to display a tiny red pill. They each grabbed one and started to take them. Andrew popped the pill in his mouth and then suddenly realized that murdering a man without realizing it is still murder. If he had to do this, he wanted to be aware of what was happening. He quickly rubbed his face and deposited the pill into his palm. Now, if you please, step away from the walls, the man said. As they did, the walls disappeared. They were standing at the entrance of a departure tunnel in JFK Airport. Flight 12 for Seattle, leaving at 8:15. Flight 12 for Seattle, an intercom crackled. They looked up towards the large clock that was hanging from one of the walls. This can't be JFK. I was just here a couple of weeks ago. This looks different. Like we are... Stephen started. In 1999, Jessica said and grabbed a newspaper that was laying on one of the terminal chairs. That's impossible, Andrew sharply added. Well, if we've traveled back in time, then that means that there must be a good reason why we are here. We have to find Brenda Anderson. Stephen's eyes searched the crowd. It would be nice to know what she looks like. As he was looking around, he didn't notice a woman walking toward them. She had her arms full and was toting a large suitcase behind her. Her hair was dark and wavy. The lipstick she wore was a bright red, and she was wearing a business suit. Her heels clicked on the tile as she darted toward them. A single thumb was texting out messages on her cell phone. Stephen turned around to face the others. I don't even know where to... The woman ran directly into the tall frame. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there, she replied. Her cell phone had been shot out of her hand and landed in front of Andrew's feet. It's no problem. Sorry, we were standing in the way, Stephen said with a smile. Andrew bent down to pick up her cell phone. He knows the screen and the text messages. One of the messages was from Peter Webster. The other was from Brenda Anderson. "Hey, Stephen, you should let this woman know there's something wrong with her flight," Andrew whispered. "What are you talking about?" Stephen looked at Andrew and noticed the cell phone screen. Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, but this flight has been delayed. There appears to be something wrong with the pilot." "What are you talking about? If there was something wrong, they would have announced it." "Well, that's what we're doing. We just came from the plane to inform the airport. That's why we're standing in the gate." "Really? Wow. Is he sick?" "Yes, really sick. The plane has already been evacuated and will taxi away soon. You might want to book another flight." "Flight 21, 8 a.m., leaving for Seattle in 10 minutes. Flight 21, leaving for Seattle." The announcement echoed through the gate, and Brenda's eyes grew wide with excitement. "Maybe I can catch that one," she said, and turned out of the gate. "Oh, wait, my cell phone." Andrew tossed it to her. "Have a nice day." "You know what? That wasn't so bad. Maybe was something terrible on that flight. Maybe we just saved her life." Stephen smiled at his accomplishment. "I wonder what'll happen next." "I could get used to this little game." They started to walk out of the gate and into the lobby. "This isn't a game. If you haven't forgotten, Andrew has to kill a man," Jessica reminded them. "Well, maybe it's just a random draw. Besides, who's to say that he really has to do it? We all have a choice, free will," Stephen said as he watched Andrew's eyes draw to the floor. They approached the large windows and watched as the plane Barbara was on taxi out of the runway. The engine started to howl and the plane took speed. The wheels started to lift from the runway and fold into the wings. Before the wheels were fully settled, one of the engines exploded. The blast shook the floor and rattled the window. They all stared in disbelief. The ball of fire fell to the runway and skidded for another 40 feet. "What? What have I done? No, what have I done?" Stephen shouted. Suddenly they were in the White Room again. Everyone but Stephen. "What happened? Where's Stephen?" Andrew asked. "Stephen? Who's Stephen?" Jessica exclaimed. "Well, he was with us. We helped him stop Barbara from getting on the plane, and then when she got on another one..." He paused. "It exploded." Jessica looked at Andrew. She thought he was crazy. She had never heard of a Stephen. As far as she remembered, she was always in the room with him. The man appeared again on the walls. "Hello, all. We have now begun your Chrono-Dissolve procedure. Soon you will not need to worry about your current grief. Our patented and safe procedure will ensure your complete satisfaction. As a precautionary measure, we would like you to please take another one of your memory dull pill." The wall once again opened to reveal the tiny red pill. Andrew once again stashed his. Then the walls disappeared again. They were standing in a hall of a hotel. It was night. "Looks like Las Vegas," Jessica said as she looked out one of the windows. "That's amazing." Andrew grabbed a magazine that was nudged inside of the armchair. "It looks like we're in 1998. "I need to get to room 306. What floor are we on?" Jessica asked and looked around for a door number. Andrew glanced at the magazine. On the cover was a 1998 Blazer. There was something about the front bumper. He couldn't stop staring at it. The whole front of the SUV seemed to give him a shiver. He flipped through the pages. Advertisements for home videos and men's cologne were splattered all over the articles. Then he noticed something that gave him a warm feeling. It was a girl, a young girl, about the age of 7, wearing a jersey. In one arm she held a basketball, and in the other she held a glass of milk. Under the photo was the phrase, "Got milk? It does a body good." It finally came back. He remembered his daughter, Sarah. Yes, that was her name. She had blonde curls and glasses. She was so smart for her age. Yet she was humble and sweet. Her favorite was peanut butter sandwiches and chicken noodle soup. "Are you coming?" Jessica asked. Andrew looked up. "Are you okay? You're crying." Andrew touched the side of his face and felt the warm tears. He quickly rolled his arm across his cheek and lifted his glasses to wipe away the remaining drops that were hanging in his eyes. "Do you need—" Jessica began. "I'm fine," he shouted. She looked up at the clock. It was exactly 9:50 p.m. "Maybe we should get you something to drink. I'm sure they have a bar here. We have time." They walked down the hall and took an elevator to the bottom floor. The ringing of slot machines echoed through the lobby. In the back corner there was a small bar. "What can I get you?" the bartender asked. "I'll take a Long Island iced tea," Jessica said. "Just a coffee for me," Andrew added. The bartender placed a mug in front of Andrew and poured him a steaming cup of coffee. Then he proceeded to pour bottle after bottle to mix Jessica's drink. He winked and placed a small Luxury Inn hotel napkin under Jessica's glass. She grabbed the glass and picked it up. "Oh, wait, one more thing," the bartender said and reached to place a pair of straws in her drink. As he did, Jessica felt the glass slip from her hands. It poured all over Andrew's lap. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," Jessica cried. Suddenly Andrew was caught with another memory. A flash of déjà vu. "What did you say?" "I said I'm sorry," she laughed through her words. Andrew grabbed her shoulders. "No, say it again, but like you mean it, as if something happened, something bad." Jessica attempted to compose herself, as it was a rather strange request. "All right," she took a deep breath. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Andrew didn't know how to explain the emotions he was digging up. He felt like he was going to cry, not only because he somehow felt hurt, but because he felt completely helpless. "Oh, we have to go," she shouted after looking at the clock on the wall. "Come on." She grabbed Andrew's arm and pulled him away. They ran down the hall and to the elevator. Once they reached the third floor, they headed toward room 306. "Okay, I guess all I have to do is go inside." She gripped the handle. It was locked. "How am I supposed to get in?" "Just a second, I think I can do this." Andrew grabbed a knife from one of the dinner carts that was sitting in the hall. He slid it between the door and the frame. He wiggled it up and down while he rotated the handle. Finally, after a few minutes, the lock released. They both walked inside. Steam rolled out of the open door of the bathroom. "So I guess I'll just wait," Jessica said and threw herself back on the queen bed. "Are you sure that's a good idea? I think someone's in here." "I'll be fine. All I have to do, according to that contract, is be here." Jessica smiled and stretched out her body. "I wish I had time to take a nap." "I'm going to wait outside," Andrew said and laid the knife on the stand next to the door. He stepped out into the hall. The flashes of memory started to come again. The way Jessica said that she was sorry just struck a chord. Where did he know her from? Why couldn't he place her in his mind? It was like a pair of wires that were just a few centimeters short of connecting, their sparks arching, reaching for the moment when they would be able to merge in a steady stream of electronic data. He continued down the hall until he reached the window. He looked out over the bright city. Suddenly he heard a scream from down the hall. It was coming from room 306. Jessica shot out of the room. Her face was buried in her hands. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "What happened, Jessica? What happened?" Andrew grabbed her. She tucked her face in his shoulder and pointed into the room. He was terrified at what he saw. A woman in a wedding gown was holding a knife that he left on the stand. Blood dripped from its serrated tip. Beneath the woman was her dead husband lying in a towel on the bed. Jessica's cries quickly, sharply disappeared. He was in the white room again. Jessica was gone. It was as if she never existed, as if she had been wiped out, erased. A man appeared on the walls again. "Hello, Andrew. You have now begun your Chrono-Dissolve procedure. Soon you will need not worry about your current grief. Our patented and—" "No!" Andrew shouted. "What is going on here? Where's Stephen and Jessica?" The man tilted his head slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about. There never was anyone here by those names. You must have imagined it. Now, if you please, take the pill located behind you. Andrew looked over his shoulder. The tiny pill beckoned for its retrieval. He grabbed the other 2 pills from his pocket and held them out in front of the man. I don't need your pills, he sternly insisted and shot them at the screen. The man touched his finger to his ear. Something had gone horribly wrong. Andrew could tell through the man's shaky voice. You don't know what you've done. You've agreed to this. We are only trying to help you with your grief. Grief? Grief? I don't have any. At that very moment, a flash of everything came rushing back to him. The reason why he was there, the reason for the Chrono-Dissolve procedure. His knees buckled and he hit the floor. No. No, he whimpered. It was as if it was yesterday. He was outside cooking on the grill. His college buddy Stephen had called earlier to tell him that he was running late, but he would try to hurry. Sarah was playing in the driveway with her basketball. It bounced off the rim and rolled out into the road. Before she could grab it, she was hit by a large SUV. His wife, Carrie, came running out when she heard the squealing tires. The jug of milk she had dropped to the pavement and exploded on impact. The driver of the SUV jumped out. It was Stephen. Later at the hospital, they waited, their breath shallowly seeping from their deep chests. No words were spoken, no apologies, just silence, painful silence. Hours passed. Then they were greeted by the doctor. It was Jessica. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, she said. They didn't know how to deal with the loss. The 3 of them met a few times in focus groups to talk about everything that had happened, their guilt, their pain. They never thought they would get over it. They soon blamed themselves. Every event was recalled in the talks. Their entire lives were exposed. Every mistake, every regret. They wondered if it would be better if they never existed. None of this would have ever happened. Andrew pulled out the contract he signed. The name that appeared so foreign before now looked so familiar. It was the name of his grandfather, Marcus Peter.